After conquering the Abyss and defeating another Colossus, Sunraku now faces the aftermath of his achievement in the world of Shangri-La Frontier. As his clan prepares for a potential conflict with another major guild, Sunraku returns to Rabbituza to complete a forgotten task, while suspicions begin to rise about Visash's true identity and his role in the larger story. Let's get started. It was announced at that time that the unique monster known as Katarnid of the Abyss had been confirmed defeated. The players awarded for defeating it were Rust, Mordo, Akitsu Akane, Sunraku, and Saiger Zero. 5 players in total. According to the developers, with the defeat of that unique monster, they were delighted to announce that the world story of Shangri-La Frontier would advance even further. Everyone listened to the announcement, including the members of the SFZU clan. The professor expressed curiosity about the world story's advancement, and while her assistant was about to ask something, the professor suddenly realized Sunraku was involved in Katarnid's defeat. She even remarked that Sunraku had once again taken down another unique monster. Next, we move to a dining place where a man asks if they were just talking about Sunraku. His companion replies yes, saying Sunraku was among those who defeated the unique monster. The man remarks that in such a short time, Sunraku has already defeated 2 unique monsters. Meanwhile, a woman walking down the street outside calls Sunraku's feet crazy and wonders who he even is. One of her companions asks if Sunraku is with the game admins. Another companion replies no, since employees are required to sign the Shangri-La Frontier non-compete clause, which forbids them from having personal accounts. A woman agrees, saying the admins must be strict about that. A man then asks if isn't Saiger Zero is part of the Schwarzwolf clan. Another confirms this, noting that clan is exclusively devoted to Lycagon. All over the game, many people are talking about Sunraku. Someone asks if Sunraku is the guy with the bird head and other joke gear, and someone else answers yes. They mention Sunraku is the topless guy with the bunny girl. Another player shares they heard rumors Sunraku has some sort of flight skill, leading another to jokingly ask if he really is a bird. They all chat in the forum, and a player with the IGN can shares another story about Sunraku wiping out the SFZU clan. Mukai chimes in, calling Sunraku a crazy birdman player killer who roams around with his bunny girl slave on a chain, crushing the skulls of anyone who approaches him. Meanwhile, a member of the Schwarzwolf clan comments on how the forum is blowing up about Katarnid's defeat, calling it a riot from the moment he logged in. He asks Saiger 100 what they should do, since if Saiger Zero is truly involved, they cannot ignore it. However, before he can finish, someone warns him not to bring that up. Saiger 100 ponders this, then suddenly asks if a clan member just mentioned Saiger Zero. The seriousness of her tone terrifies her comrades. One whispers to the one who asked, explaining that since he has been offline for a while, he does not know this, but in recent days, merely mentioning Saiger Zero's name is enough to enrage Saiger 100. After hearing this, the one who mentioned Saiger Zero asks if the siblings are fighting again. The Whisperer replies that things are already hard enough for them with those 2 fighting, but after the announcement of Katarnid's defeat, Saiger 100 is about to explode. The name dropper corrects him, saying Saiger 100 is not about to explode, but is already exploding. The Whisperer adds that now, the new land will likely have to wait longer. No one replies. First, Sunraku's group defeated Lycagon, the Shadow Wolf. Then, a week later, they defeated Katarnid of the Abyss. Meanwhile, the Schwarzwolf clan, who devoted themselves to defeating the 7 Colossi, have achieved little against them, while Sunraku's group keeps taking them down. To make matters worse, one of the person in that group is a member of their clan. After hearing all this, Saiger 100 completely snaps and slams the table hard, while her clan mate sarcastically thanks Sunraku's group for preventing them from sharing information. It looks like Saiger 100 has been completely shut out of the party. Saiger 100 stands up, prompting a clanmate to ask what is going on. As Saiger 100 storms out of the room, she declares she needs Pencil gone immediately. Then she retracts it, saying she will instead contact the entire Wolfgang clan. Fueled by rage, Saiger 100 forcefully opens the door. Her clanmates notice her anger, and one remarks that it is great, wondering if the others realize who else will be upset about this. We then cut to Saiger 100's inner thoughts. She declares to her sibling that she will not accept what has happened, telling her to watch closely. As for Sunraku, he better prepare himself for her. Next, we move to the ship where Sunraku and his group are. He is overjoyed at the number of titles he has earned: Survivor from the Abyss, Truth Seeker, Flying Innsman's Crew, Prover of the Succession, Diverging Roads United Hearts, Notorious Outlaw, and Billion Earner. He also acquired the Abyssal Warning Bell accessory and the Tome of Truth Abyss Edition item. Sunraku shouts out his joy, saying all the booty arrived at once. Imul, Sea Crew, Akane, and Mordo join in his excitement, while Rust appears seasick. He then examines the Tome of Truth Abyss Edition, wondering why aside from that and the Grails, all they received was the Warning Bell. Akane asks what that bell is. We learn that the Abyssal Warning Bell is a bell sent from the depths of the sea, ocean-colored, designed to alert its holder to incoming danger. Additional information has also been unlocked, tied to the 4th level of the world story, and the bell will inform its owner through its ring. The previous challengers failed, and now it is their turn. Sunraku tells his companions there is still locked information about the Abyssal Warning Bell and notes how ominous the item's description is. Mordo asks if the bell warns them of danger and if they should run when it rings or do something else. Sunraku suggests it might be one of those mind game mechanics, like some mysterious creature from Untold Chaos. Mordo remarks that the bell's description mentions something unlocking at the 4th level of the world story, prompting him to ask what the world story even is. The term was also mentioned in the announcement. Sunraku explains, according to the library guys he knows, the world story is when the world progresses to its next state. He adds that he does not fully understand it himself, but guesses what level they are currently on. He recalls that when they defeated Weatherman the Tomb Guard, there was an announcement about the story progressing. Mordo comments that now, they heard something similar again. If the previous time was the first progression and this one the second, then they must now be at the 3rd level of the world story. Sunraku agrees, noting that a hidden line will become visible when they advance the world story once more. However, he wonders if the bell will still ring even though they are not yet at level 4. That would mean they could use it like a radar to find whatever is censored in the world. Thrilled by the idea, he says his nose tells him they will find hidden items that way. Hearing this, Imul calls him a walking pile of greed, while Akane wonders about Sunraku's statement, saying it only smells like the sea to her. At that moment, Akane notices Saiger Zero looking troubled and asks what is wrong. Saiger Zero asks if her name was mentioned in the announcement just now. Akane cheerfully confirms, saying she was one of the 5 names called out. Saiger Zero finds it awful, certain her sibling heard it too. Mordo wonders why Saiger Zero is irritated, and Sunraku senses her frustration as well. He remarks that it is indeed annoying their names are announced without being given a chance to decline it. Someone then calls out Sunraku's name, and when he turns, it is Araba, who asks what is up. Araba says the ship is nearing port, and everything seems fine. He believes it is time for him and Nereid to head home. Sunraku is surprised since he thought they were all going back to Fiftitia, but he realized Araba meant the homeland of the Pescorians. Araba explains that after being swallowed up and brought to Reluiath, he had given up hope of ever escaping the abyss alive. That was until he met him, which surprises Sunraku. Araba adds that Nereid felt the same, because if not for Sunraku, they both would have been forced to serve Katarnid forever. Stude overhears this, as Araba and Nereid bow in gratitude while thanking Sunraku. Sunraku returns the thanks, noting how they saved him multiple times, along with others, and helped figure out the inversion gimmick early on. Everyone owes them a debt. Suddenly, Stude calls out to Araba and runs toward him. Araba greets him as my little pirate, telling him that he prays he will grow stronger over time. Through tears, Stude promises he will, since he is the son of the great pirate, after all. Sunraku wonders what happened between Stude and Araba. Soon after, Araba prepares to jump off the ship and calls Sunraku my friend, telling him if he ever encounters a dwarf named Gandak, he can bring up his name. Gandak, he says, is a highly talented blacksmith who will surely help him. Sunraku is touched by being called my friend and remarks how Araba is making this weirdly emotional, as if it were a permanent goodbye. Araba clarifies that it is not, but the ocean is the home of his people, and encountering land dwellers like Sunraku will not be easy. Sunraku replies that adventurers chase the unknown wherever it lies and will run to the ends of the world to find it. So even the depths of the sea are no big deal. Araba agrees, then dives into the sea with Nereid. As they swim away, he says he looks forward to the day they meet again, and Nereid tells them to take care. The two swim off into the distance. Akane waves to them, and Sunraku wonders aloud if that scenario is officially over once they return to Fifticia. Mordo asks what they will do afterward, and Rust, wobbling, answers that she will just sleep. Sunraku agrees, saying he is worn out too, but Rust shouts that he slept through half the day during the event, reminding him of what happened. Saiger Zero tries to speak up, prompting Sunraku to ask what is up. Saiger Zero says she wants to ask a big favor from Sunraku. The scene then shifts to Fifticia, where Pencilgon is giving her reaction about Sunraku's recent escapade, adding that the dust has not even settled from the Lycagon bonus scenario, and yet Sunraku went straight to fighting Katarnit. On top of that, Pencilgon points out he was even with Schwartz-Wolf's attack holder, meaning chaos will erupt in the aftermath. Suddenly, someone comments that they have never seen someone make Pencilgon scowl that much, and that person must be quite the character. Pencilgon replies that because of how kind she is, problem kids tend to flock to her, and too many people keep throwing huge burdens on her shoulders. She says it sucks, but the person she's talking to would know. The one speaking with Pencilgon is Kyogoku, the number 3 player in the Ashura Kai. Kyogoku asks if Pencilgon is including her in that assessment. She says she has long left Ashura Kai, and that until recently, Pencilgon was the bigger problem child than she ever was. Pencilgon asks why Kyogoku thinks she worked so hard to dismantle Ashura Kai, implying it was because of that freak they referred to and because Kyogoku reneged on her promises. Kyogoku acknowledges Pencilgon is busy and presses for an answer on whether she will accept her offer. Pencilgon replies it depends, as she has completely washed her hands of player killing. This is not about Saiger 100, she clarifies, but about fighting Schwartz-Wolf all at once. Kyogoku smiles and asks if Pencilgon has really washed her hands clean. She says a splash of water changes nothing and believes she does not even need to make an offer, since she already planned to fight Schwartz-Wolf from the beginning. She asks Pencilgon if that was true. Pencilgon laughs, pleased that Kyogoku figured her out. She says Kyogoku makes it sound mean, because all she really wants is to have a little chat with Schwartz-Wolf. She added that she understood Kyogoku's point, that while she was fighting Schwartz-Wolf on a personal basis, Kyogoku wanted to take advantage of the situation. Kyogoku then asked if that was not a bad deal for either of them. This made Pencilgon recall that when they were both part of the Ashura Kai, Kyogoku once suggested raiding Schwartz-Wolf, but unfortunately, her stupid brother turned it down. Even so, she had simply been biding her time, waiting for the right moment. She was still every bit the battle junkie she had always been. We learn that Kyogoku is level 104 and has 380 HP. Pencilgon notices this and comments that in the new land, Kyogoku must have already received her level 99 cap extension. She knows Kyogoku wants to work with her not because of their unique stuff, but because of the fight she seeks, which is fine by her. No wonder Kyogoku is pure PK build. She even recalls Kyogoku once saying to give her a sword and she can always fight. She is one of the most skilled in terms of fighting power, and Pencilgon has experienced that firsthand, though it also causes problems. Kyogoku then asks if Pencilgon's clan is called the Wolf Gang and says she would like to join if possible, though she wonders if she lacks the trust for that. Pencilgon responds that trust is not necessarily the problem, though deep down she has a slightly bad feeling about it. She then asks Kyogoku if she can inquire about the lack of trust, and Kyogoku, sounding uncertain, replies yes. Pencilgon says she heard that Kyogoku had been playing survival mode in the new land without a clan and asks how she managed to return. Kyogoku explains that she requested a small favor and teleported via a sage who possessed a teleport gate. Pencilgon is surprised, as teleport gates are rare magic that allow groups to travel to points previously visited by the caster. It is the game's take on fast travel. It is a rare and valuable high-end magic known only to a handful of players and NPCs. She is also curious about how Kyogoku paid for the favor. She then says she will have to discuss her potential membership with the two idiots in her clan. so she cannot give a definite answer yet. Still, she says she is on the shortlist, which Kyogoku calls great news. Pencilgon then suggests they head to the harbor, which surprises Kyogoku. Pencilgon explains that the Katarnid quest apparently begins at Fictitia's port, so if the players who defeated Katarnid return, that is likely where they will go. She wants to introduce Kyogoku to one of the idiots she mentioned. While saying this, she glances at her, who remains silent. She asks what is wrong, and Kyogoku says if she is going to introduce her, at least use her real name. She repeats that her name is not Kyogoku in this game. It is Kyo the Ultimate. She says it with passion from deep within her heart, but Pencilgon responds with a flat no thanks. Triggered by that answer, Kyogoku shouts that she formally protests. Pencilgon explains that they already concluded long ago that the name was too long and hard to say. Kyogoku remarks that while Pencilgon listens to people and understands them, she has no interest in changing her mind about anything, prompting her to mutter what a pain. The scene then shifts to the streets of Fictitia, where Siger 100 is running. She is irritated because Pencilgon is not answering her male bird. On top of that, her sister Ray, also known as Siger 0, would not respond if she sent her a male bird either, leaving her wondering what to do. At that moment, she notices a massive flock of birds overhead. Someone nearby comments that all the birds are heading in the same direction, toward a large building. Siger 100 realizes she knows that location. It is the library's main base, and the male birds are probably addressed to Sunraku. Using the birds, she deduces she can track Sunraku's location. Indeed, all the birds are flying towards Sunraku, who is still at sea aboard Stude's ship. Sunraku notices the flock, waking both himself and a mole from their nap as the birds swarm them. Mordo is surprised by the number of male birds, and Siger 0 explains it is because everyone now knows they defeated Katarnid. Sunraku grumbles, wishing the birds would just drop the mail and leave. He had not expected this so soon after finishing the scenario, and admits he has a bad feeling about it. He wonders aloud if it is really okay for them to return just like that. The next scene shifts to the real world, inside the luxurious office of Utopia Games. On the desk of Tsukuri, there are 4 empty energy drink cans. Her monitor shows that the world story progression rate of Shangri-La Frontier is now at 24%, following the detection of the S-result completion of the unique monster unit Katarnid of the Abyss. Tsukuri muses aloud that maybe they should turn SLF into a battle to the death game. Tsukiyogi immediately shoots the idea down, saying the public would have the heads of everyone in Utopia Games. Tsukuri says she was joking, and adds she cannot let her world gain a bad reputation. Ritsu comments that not long ago Weathermon was defeated, and now the players have taken down Katarnid as well. She cannot believe it. Apart from that, there are no signs of cheating or glitch exploits either. Tsukuri insists she already told Ritsu it was impossible in the world she created. Tsukiyogi agrees, saying it means Katarnid was defeated by players following the intended process. Moreover, the Abyss unique monster was taken down on the first attempt. Ritsu agrees, saying the players figured out all of Katarnid's gimmicks immediately. For a boss like that, players should normally have to fight several times, gradually working out its traits and inner workings. She cannot fathom how Sunraku's group managed to win so quickly and asks what is the deal with that defeat. Annoyed, Tsukuri grumbles that she had told them to implement her original proposal. In that proposal, Katarnid would have had 15 forms, interfering with space and time, launching surprise attacks from both past and future, making Katarnid the strongest. She claims she knew all along Katarnid would otherwise be too easy. Hearing this, veins pop on Ritsu's forehead, and after Tsukuri's remarks, she shouts that Katarnid was not easy at all. She had designed him to be a great, super annoying bastard of a boss, and Tsukuri had agreed to the fine-tuning she did. The two start arguing, with Tsukuri calling Ritsu's tuning lame-ass, which angers Ritsu even more. She asks what Tsukuri just said, and said that Tsukuri should be grateful she always fixes her crappy designs. Tsukuri cannot stand being told her designs are crappy and demands how dare Ritsu call her design crappy when it is her world. Tsukiyogi steps in, trying to calm them down, pushing them apart and reminding them they have been at it since college, and this is not the time to fight. Both Tsukuri and Ritsu tell him to shut up and simultaneously elbow him in the chest. He absorbs the blows effortlessly, shocking them both into silence. He cheerfully says, "Nice try," boasting that he took some special extra-strength stomach medicine, so now the rumblies are gone and elbows do not bother him. His wife even cut his lunch sausages into octopus shapes, so he is fully invincible today. Tsukuri remarks in amazement that Tsukiyogi would drink something so sketchy, while Ritsu criticizes him for not taking better care of himself. Tsukiyogi snaps, shouting that they are the cause of his health problems. Regaining his composure, Tsukiyogi steers the conversation back to the main topic. It is clear to him that they underestimated the players. Ritsu agrees, saying they cannot ignore the 5 winners anymore. Tsukiyogi points out that the same name keeps appearing among the parties who defeated both Weathermon and Katarnid, referring to Sunraku. He notes that Sunraku met the conditions for Lycagon's mark at level 18, then triggered both Lycagon and Vise's bonus scenarios. All of this happened within about a month of playing SLF. Ritsu says they checked if Sunraku was an insider, alpha tester, or beta tester, but nothing turned up, leading her to ask just who Sunraku really is. Tsukiyogi then asks what they are going to do about him. Tsukuri immediately responds, saying nothing. She will not allow any interference. She quoted that God may watch over the world, but he does not love everyone. Tsukiyogi accepts this decision, saying he just wanted Tsukuri's confirmation. He then excuses himself, saying he needs to return upstairs to tackle a pile of Phase 4 tuning work. With that, only Tsukuri and Ritsu remain in the room. Tsukuri asks Ritsu how long she plans to stay. Ritsu answers that she wants to leave the dreary room within a 1/10 of a second, but unfortunately, she has 2 pieces of business for Tsukuri. Tsukuri asks where those came from. Ritsu says one is from the kid boss, the other from Tsukuri's family. The first request is that the kid boss wants her to leak some new information. Tsukuri comments on the kid boss's impatience, saying she already uploaded data to the orchestra and will let the kid boss peek once or twice. But he got up to no good earlier and asks Ritsu if he should be punished. Ritsu says spanking the kid boss on the butt would probably be fun. The second request, from Tsukuri's family, is for maintenance help. A family member said, "I did nothing at all, and now it is broken." Tsukuri calls that a boomer excuse, saying she hates parents who cannot let go. As Ritsu leaves, she reminds Tsukuri to reply to those requests, as they are top clients of Utopia, despite it all. Tsukuri says she will think about it before Tsukiyogi's stomach explodes. After Ritsu closes the door, Tsukuri immediately pulls out her phone, musing that since it has been about a month since Sunraku joined, it would be the Leviathan. She is impressed by Sunraku and says if Sunraku plays his cards right, he might aim for her grandfather's Kyojuro. She then adds Sunraku to her focus list. She remarks that the gods do not love everyone, but they do watch over the world, so if that is the case, she will watch over Sunraku as well. In the next scene, we return to the world of Shangri-La Frontier, where Stude's ship finally docks at Fictitia. He instructs his crewmates to hold the ship steady as they moor it. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief, glad to finally be on solid land again. Akane comments that it was quite a week-long journey. Rust, wobbling as she walks, complains about being tired, prompting Mordo to tell her to endure just a little longer. Sunraku remarks that what they went through was hardly a casual scenario, but before he can finish, Stude calls everyone together. He thanks them all, saying they helped him recover his precious memento. Sunraku agrees and asks if Stude also got revenge for his father and everything else. Stude replies not yet, since it was his father's cutlass that delivered the final blow to Katarnid, but not he himself. He then extends his hand to Sunraku for a handshake, declaring that next time, he will use that same hand to defeat Katarnid. Sunraku responds with disbelief, recalling how Stude used to wet himself just by looking at him, yet now Stude is saying such things. After Sunraku shakes his hand, Stude angrily denies ever wetting himself. He then bids them farewell, inviting them to come to him if they ever want to sail the high seas again. Akane remarks how much Stude has grown, but Rust disagrees, saying he only went from being a snot-nosed kid to just a kid. Sunraku is surprised that Stude wants them to return, wondering if Katarnid is becoming a repeatable quest. He realizes that Katarnid talked to them as usual after they defeated him and that the blockers revived too. At that moment, he spots Kyogoko waiting at Stude's shack. Kyogoku asks if he is Son Raku and notes that he really is half-naked, just like the rumors say. At first, Kyogoku acts nonchalant, but then she bombards Son Raku with questions while inspecting him, asking if he defeated Weathermon with that gear and if he is a dodge build. Son Raku and Amol are both stunned by Kyogoku's barrage, and she even comments that Son Raku must be pretty strong. She then asks if he is interested in any PvP action. Son Raku, confused, wonders who this furry chick is and asks for her name. He sees that her name is Kyogoku and asks if that is really her name. Kyogoku replies that her real name is actually Kyo Ultimate, which makes Son Raku ask why it is so long. He then asks what business Kyo Ultimate has with him, calling her Kyodimate, which annoys her. At that moment, Pencilgon arrives and tells Kyogoku to stop, still unable to get over being called Kyodimate. Son Raku is surprised to see Pencilgon there and lets out a startled gay. She asks him why he said that, saying she came all the way here to welcome him back. She adds that there is still a lot she wants to say, but first, they need to move, which confuses Son Raku. Pencilgon explains that many players have sniffed out their location. They followed the mailbird flock, and some are even milling with NPCs to eavesdrop on them. Son Raku notes that there really are a lot of mailbirds. Pencilgon replies that if they stay there, not only mailbirds, but also trouble will come flying their way. At that moment, Siger100 arrives and asks if Pencilgon said trouble was referring to trouble like her. Pencilgon confirms that is exactly what she meant. Siger100 then notices Kyogoku and wonders what she is doing there, before scanning the rest of Son Raku's group, Akitsu Akane, Mordo, and Rust. In her mind, she wonders if they too defeated Katarnid, since she has not heard their names before. She then notices her younger sister Rei, also known as Siger Zero, standing behind them. Without saying anything to her, she instead turns to Towa, also known as Pencilgon, and asks if she was responsible for defeating Katarnid. Towa is surprised that Siger100 used her real name and reminds her that she should be calling her Arthur Pencilgon, asking if she is right, while addressing her by her real name, Momo. Siger100 does not respond, prompting Pencilgon to add that she was not part of the fun in defeating Katarnid. She points towards Son Raku, saying he was completely acting on his own, as she only found out about it after the announcement. Because of this, Son Raku warns her not to start passing the trouble on to him, but she asks what he means. She says he is really the cause of all this and asks if isn't cleaning up is his responsibility. Son Raku retorts by asking if isn't that Pencilgon's job. Then Siger100 addresses Son Raku directly, saying she wants to ask him something point blank. Is it true that he triggered the bonus unique scenario for Lycagon the Night Slayer? Son Raku does not immediately answer and instead looks at Siger Zero, who bows her head. He thinks Siger100 must have been tipped off by Rei and knows there is no way to hide this secret now that outsiders like Rei are involved. Siger100 herself thinks there is not much value to the information she is asking about. Son Raku finally admits that it is true. He did trigger the bonus unique scenario for Lycagon the Night Slayer. He explains it happened after Lycagon spawned and they defeated her. However, what they actually defeated was Lycagon's shadow, essentially a doppelganger. Siger100 comments that even against a mere shadow, they came in fully prepared and still got beaten, so she is impressed by Son Raku. Son Raku, confused, asks why his hair is standing on end. Suddenly, Kyogoku appears behind him and whispers that Siger100 is not joking. Schwarzwolf is one of the best clans in the game. They constantly dive into front lines pursuing unique monsters, and now a random no-name player has stolen 2 of their targets. She adds that Son Raku even triggered a Lycagon scenario that Siger100 wanted to check out, which clearly frustrates her. Kyogoku notes that if it was not enough that Son Raku took what Siger100 wanted, one of Siger100's fellow clan members is now hanging out and teaming up with a no-name guy. She asks Son Raku of isn't Siger100 gonna have a problem with that. This makes Son Raku think he does not want to deal with this. He decides it is best for him to stop being the sole target of all this attention. He then tells Siger100 that he thinks the SFZoo clan has made laws about Lycagon's spawn timing. Siger100 calls that good news, and Son Raku concludes he needs to spread out as many decoys as possible. He adds that he is fine with sharing tips about the Lycagon battle, but of course, he needs his clan leader's permission first, which is only proper. Pencil-gon is startled to be dragged into it and reacts in shock. Saiger 100 agrees that it makes sense, and Sunraku confirms it, saying they should enjoy working things out together. The two clan leaders begin their discussion while Rust, Mordo, and Akane watch. Akane comments that things got pretty ugly there real fast. Mordo agrees, saying it could end up hairy, and asks Rust if she feels the same way. Rust, however, is so sleepy that all she says is that she really needs a bed. Kyogoku notices the three of them and approaches, asking if they are also part of Pencil-gon's clan, the Wolf Gang. Mordo is surprised by the question and replies that they are sort of in, though not officially. Sunraku overhears this, as Mordo whispers that, come to think of it, he does not know Pencil-gon all that well. Sunraku notes that he only gave them an informal invite. He explains that the clan currently consists of himself, Pencil-gon, the person Saiger 100 was talking to, and another guy named Oikatsu. He says they will meet Oikatsu later, and they already clued him in about them. Kyogoku asks if Oikatsu is one of the Weathermon party members and flicks her ear while asking. Akane is delighted to see this, realizing the ears are not just an accessory item. Kyogoku is surprised Akane noticed and happily explains that she converted a little. Sunraku and Mordo are confused about what she means by conversion. She clarifies that it means she became a beast man. It lowers her magic compatibility a bit, but she gains many bonuses in return. Sunraku asks if she switched races and if that is even possible. Mordo says that players cannot choose races when creating characters, but apparently, race changes are possible mid-game. Kyogoku is shocked they did not know this and teases that Mordo must not be a hardcore player. She adds that while they are discussing the makeup of Sunraku's clan, she is also planning to join the Wolf Gang, so they should be friends. Sunraku is surprised to hear this, and Pencil-gon confirms it is true, saying they can discuss the details once Katsuo arrives. For now, she says they should talk about their current situation, since a lot has happened. Sunraku is shocked that Pencil-gon is bringing new members into the clan and wonders what she is trying to set in motion. At that moment, Pencil-gon warns him that Mordo and the others joining the clan was supposed to be the last of his surprises, but he knew she has got plans of her own that she is trying to carry out. If he keeps acting out of line, that kind of screws things up. Sunraku says he is done now and tells her not to worry about it. After he says this, they all turn to see Rei approaching her older sister. Rei apologizes, addressing her sister and clan leader, and says she wants to talk to her. Saiger 100 agrees, allowing her to speak. Rei struggled to get her words out, but finally gains confidence and declares to Saiger 100 that from that day forward, she is resigning from Schwarzwolf to join the Wolfgang clan. She says it is something she fully worked out with Sunraku during their sea voyage. Sunraku apologizes again, realizing his surprises are still not over. In the next scene, we shift to the Wolfgang's base. Pencil-gon was clearly frustrated, saying Sunraku and the others must be messing with her. She pointed out that it's not like anyone can just be added to their clan. Sunraku asked if hadn't she said it was okay to invite the Reluyith team members to the Wolfgang. Pencil-gon replied that she didn't know they'd go as far as poaching the attack holder himself. Mordo then asked if it was alright that they left the siblings behind just to go to the base. Sunraku said it was more like they ran away from them. Kyogoku, visibly upset, muttered that they were almost pointed at by spears by those people, prompting Sunraku to ask why she looked so down about that. Then Pencil-gon yelled at Sunraku, asking if he would ever stop ruining every brilliant plan she made. Sunraku scratched his head and said he had a talent for that. Pencil-gon said her informant told her things inside Schwarzwolf were more than just chaotic, and she believed Saiger Zero's resignation would be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Meanwhile, Sunraku was shocked that Pencil-gon had an informant, wondering if she had a spy inside Schwarzwolf. He tried to ask Pencil-gon about it, but before he could speak, she suddenly remembered that Katsuo wouldn't be able to make it that day. Sunraku was surprised and asked if she meant Katsuo wasn't in Fiftitia yet. Pencil-gon said she suspected he was scouting other routes, trying to boost his armor and gear along the way. He was probably super busy in real life too. That reminded Sunraku how Katsuo always liked to mess around, scavenging for gear and stuff. After that, Akane raised her hand and asked Towa if she was Pencil-gon the leader of the Wolf Gang. She looked delighted, apologized for not introducing herself earlier, then introduced herself as Akitsu Akane, one of the new members of the Wolf Gang. Mordo followed with his own introduction and also introduced Rust, who was asleep. As a bright flash of light erupted from Akane, she said it was such an awesome thrill to play with Pencil Gone. The brightness startled Pencil Gone, making her ask what that pure, unwavering light of innocence that was. She couldn't believe Akane's light element, as it was painfully bright and hard to look at. Akane was surprised at her reaction, while Sunraku warned her to back off before she got dispelled by the light. Emul then asked what Akane was doing. Kyogoku cut in and asked if they could stop goofing around. There were Colossus Slayers in the room, and she wanted to talk about the Katarnid fight and other stuff. She bombarded Sunraku with questions, like how the battle went, what skills he used, his weapons, and whether he was the strongest one on the team. She was extremely curious and challenged him to a spar, but Sunraku told her to stop turning every topic into a PvP match. He then asked Pencil Gone to deal with Kyogoku, calling her a fight maniac. However, Pencil Gone was focused on Katarnid. She said Katarnid is all info on what's now a unique monster from the past, and they needed the Tome of Truth to attract the library. She caught Sunraku's attention with that, and added that if they played their cards right, they could negotiate a hefty side fee with the library clan. Sunraku told her to wait, saying they were better off being cautious with Katarnid's Tome of Truth. Pencil Gone asked why, so Sunraku glanced at Akane, Mordo, and Rust. He felt that since they'd come this far together, so it was better to share the info than hide it. He told everyone that he knew it goes without saying, but what he was about to say shouldn't leave the room. Kyogoku looked confused, and Sunraku added that based on that tome and what they saw after the victory, it was fair to say Katarnid of the Abyss could be defeated repeatedly. Pencil Gone was shocked to hear that, while Kyogoku showed no reaction. Pencil Gone asked if Katarnid was a repeatable boss, shocked that one of the 7 Colossi could be farmed. Kyogoku asked if Sunraku was sure. Sunraku said it was blatantly obvious and he'd be shocked if it wasn't true. Pencil Gone called it a bombshell, and Sunraku agreed. It was even more valuable than info on how they beat Katarnid. Akane looked surprised, while Pencil Gone said if any well-organized clan learned that, it would be over. They would definitely try to monopolize Katarnid. The exact kind of thing that Schwarzwolf would try. She initially planned to bait the library using that info, but if they couldn't share it, then what next? Sunraku seemed to think, while Pencil Gone said that for now, they wouldn't release the Tome of Truth for the Abyss Saga. Sunraku asked if he could ask something quickly, and his clan leader gave him the go-ahead. He asked what Pencil Gone was trying to pull off against Schwarzwolf. She replied that if they just let Schwarzwolf be, what did he think would happen? Joking, Sunraku said he doubted they'd invite them to a victory party. Pencil Gone said that if she were Momo, aka Saiger 100, she'd demand every bit of info about Lycagon and Katarnid. She'd also pry into the Weathermon stuff. Sunraku asked if she would really go that far. He knew they are a high-end clan, but why all the pointless pride? He asked. Pencil Gone answered it's not like she does not know Saiger 100. Sooner or later, that's exactly what she'd do. Kyogoku agreed and said that's who Saiger 100 was. She took SLF very seriously, probably even more seriously than Sunraku could imagine. However, Sunraku wasn't sure he cared. Pencil Gone said that normally, Saiger 100 was the kind of leader who could corral her members, even when things got hairy. But this time, she was the most hot-headed among them. The Wolf Gang couldn't afford to lose their advantage of exclusive access on monster info. If push came to shove, she said they'd probably have to rely on their powers. Mordo wondered what she meant. Pencil Gone added that she was willing to talk to avoid conflict, so she didn't want anyone giving her more problems. Sunraku agreed and asked if they should put Rei's request to join their clan on hold for the time being. Pencil Gone replied that Rei's mind was already made up. Bad timing or not, if she was going to be an ally, they should welcome her. Kyogoku said that was fine, and if it meant they'd be targeted by Schwarzwolf, she'd handle it and buy the Wolf Gang time to escape. Sunraku asked if Kyogoku was really listening. Pencil Gone said Kyogoku was a samurai swordsman in the modern era, and in her mind, swords solved everything. Then Pencil Gone remembered something and said that since everyone was present, she had something to show them. Sunraku asked what it was, and she replied that now that they had more members, she made a Wolfgang clan emblem. It was a minimalist design of a wolf with a flower or shining star on its neck. They could print it on their equipment if they wanted. Akane was thrilled and said she'd definitely put it on her gear, while Mordo said it was cool. Sunraku then mentions that he was wondering what was behind Pencilgon, now realizing it was the clan emblem. Kyogoku said she wasn't the type to put something like that on her stuff. Sunraku agreed, saying he didn't even have much space for it anyway. Because of their reactions, Pencilgon asked if they could at least absorb some of Akane's charm, calling her Aki. Kyogoku then asked Pencilgon why she never put the Ashura Kai emblem on her gear. Pencilgon replied that emblem was just embarrassing to look at. As they spoke, Sunraku noticed Rust was zoning out, as if daydreaming about the Nephilim. Sunraku asked what was going on with the weird password version, and Mordo said he thought Rust was at her limit. Pencilgon apologized for keeping Rust up even though she was exhausted. She said they could catch up on Katarnid's details tomorrow. For now, she suggested they wrap up and call it a night. Sunraku thanked her, calling her godmother Pencilgon, and asked if they could finish up sometime today. Pencilgon said she wanted something from the rest of the members. First, no prodding Schwartz-Wolf, as those guys were already on edge, and absolutely no leaks about Katarnid info. For now, she would be the only one moving. Akane, Mordo, and Rust all agreed, even though Rust was partly asleep. Sunraku was fine with that too. He said he'd leave those things to the one who liked using her brain all day, and in the meantime, he'd do his own thing. Kyogoku left and asked if the meeting was adjourned. She said she'd prepare herself to act on a moment's notice and that she couldn't wait for that plan to be executed. After she closed the door, Sunraku asked Pencilgon if they were okay with Kyogoku, still calling her Kyodimate. Pencilgon said that now that Kyogoku had sniffed them out, it was better to keep her close than release her into the wild. We then cut to Kyogoku walking briskly. She couldn't believe Pencilgon wanted to negotiate with Schwartz-Wolf, thinking there was no way it would end peacefully. To her, this situation is a chance of a lifetime, and she didn't have time to play around in some new land. Meanwhile, the world of SLF has advanced, and the newest of the Divine Ones has moved. A group was already fighting the newest Divine One. The Tomb Guard is now asleep, and the Abyss had already sunk. The new Divine One said the time had come and the players should consider fighting him in honor. He would grant them the distinction of being sucked dry as a member of his entourage. One player couldn't believe their opponent was a talking dragon. He asked if this was Seagworm the Sky Ruler. The dragon was insulted by the comparison and told them never to utter that name again. His name was Norwind, the lone, absolute, and true king of all dragons. The darkness aiming to overcome the golden has begun to stir. The world had progressed, and as part of that, the world, with all life living upon it buffeted by mighty tremors, will go into the third stage of its story. The great battle to defeat the Golden had begun. A new chapter was unfolding, the unending dragon blight and the howling wolf. In the next scene, we switch to real life at the rock roll game shop, the shop Sunraku often visits. Inside, the clerk Mana is chatting with a guy named Sakai. Mana is talking about what she ate that day, while Sakai insists Mana saved him. Mana thinks he is exaggerating, but Sakai keeps saying it is true. Mana hangs up and stretches. As she does, she notices many students passing by the shop and realizes it is already September, the end of summer break. That also marks the close of Shangri-La Frontier's summer break campaign. Elsewhere, where insects are loudly buzzing, Sunraku, also known as Hizutomi, walks along complaining about the heat. He says all the cicadas are dying, and he nearly steps on one, so he wonders what is going on with summer this year. At that moment, Rei Saiga, also known as Saiger Zero, spots him. Rei is startled to see her crush Hizutomi and quickly bows to wish him good morning. Sunraku is surprised, not expecting someone to greet him out of nowhere in the middle of the street. He immediately recognizes Rei Saiga, and Saiga, in an awkward tone, confirms that is her name and says it is kind of funny to run into Hizutomi there. Hizutomi asks if that is so and agrees. He then asks Saiga if she lives around there, since he has not seen her walking to school before. Saiga answers no, she just changed her route a bit for the new season. She says she only saw Hizutomi and decided to speak up, and that is all. However, after saying it, she realizes what a lame excuse that sounds like, since she has no idea what she is even saying. Hizutomi lets it pass, but inside he thinks he once saw Saiga at a convenience store, so maybe she does not live far away. After that, they walk together without talking, and both feel the awkward silence. Saiga says it looks like it is time to head back to school, and Hizutomi agrees. It is time to start the new semester, he even says. He begins to panic, wondering whether they will talk all the way to school and what he should talk about. Like, did anything happen to him over summer break, or whatever? Nothing happened except playing games. That was super fulfilling for him, but what would that mean to anyone else? However, he remembers Saiga once told him she plays SLF. So he asks her if she plays SLF, but because of his awkwardness he comes off like a weirdo, which startles Saiga. She says yes, and she has been playing for almost a year. Hizutomi says that makes her an early adopter, though inwardly he feels like he has had this conversation before, or maybe not. He asks if she is really into it, or just casual. Saiga said yes, to some extent. He then asks her if she has visited the new land from the recent update, and says he has not been able to keep up with all the new content. She has not explored it yet, and thinks a few members of her clan are trying it. Hizutomi says that if Saiga is in a clan, then she really is into it. Saiga laughs and says definitely, though inside she is proud that she can talk to Hizutomi normally. Maybe this is the perfect moment, her chance to reveal who she is in SLF and apologize in person for her clan drama. At that moment, Hizutomi asks what type of character she plays, and she says a fighter who uses a massive sword. Hizutomi is surprised that she is a great sword warrior, telling himself that is a bit unexpected for a proper, quiet girl like Saiga. Saiga is about to say who she is in SLF, since this is her chance, but an insect suddenly drops from a tree. As Saiga starts to say her player name, the insect falls toward her. She notices and reflexively flicks it away. The insect flies at Hizutomi, who startles at the sudden fling and realizes it is a cicada. He needs to duck, but it is too late and it hits him in the face. He falls and realizes that in real life he can see things, but he cannot react as fast. The insect flies off, but while doing so it shoots liquid from its rear that splats right on Hizutomi's nose, making him scream. Saiga screams too, worried about him. She apologizes, saying the insect fell toward her face and flicking it away was just a reflex. Hizutomi says her reflexes are great, so no wonder she is a fighter. At that moment, a boy watching from a corner asks what is going on with them. Then in the next scene, the morning bell rings at school, and Saiga repeatedly bows to Hizutomi to apologize for the cicada incident. Son Raku is not pleased, saying there is nothing like getting peed on by a cicada to start the semester. Then someone calls his name, the same boy who saw them earlier, and asks why he is walking to school with Saiga. Hizutomi greets the boy and says he still remembers how the guy got his ear pierced at the start of the year, and it got so infected it looked like elephant ears. Way to kick off high school, he teases the man. The boy tells him to shut up, since that was a whole damn year ago. He wants an answer from Hizutomi and asks since when he has been close enough with Saiga to walk her to school. Hizutomi replies that he is not in with Saiga, since they just happened to see each other and started talking. The boy argues that you do not talk to someone unless you are already close. He asks what Hizutomi did over summer break. Hizutomi asks whether Saiga practices martial arts or something. The boy is surprised and asks if Hizutomi does not know. Saiga does judo, an old-school martial art. Rumor has it she is extremely skilled, which makes her reflexes make sense to Hizutomi. Even so, the boy disagreed and said he doesn't understand it at all. Nothing but trouble happens when a poison weed like Hizutomi dares to sprout next to this unattainable ideal of a girl. Hizutomi asks if he is the nightshade to Saiga's rose. Their teacher asks what they are doing in the classroom, since the new semester ceremony is in the gym, so they should head there. The boy adds, more to his point, that he thought Saiga gets dropped off and picked up every day. If she is walking, that is weird in itself. Hizutomi says the boy knows way too much about Saiga and calls him Elephant Boy. On the way to the gym, Hizutomi hears classmates talking about how Katarnid has already been defeated. One says he has not seen Katarnid yet, and another says most players have not. Someone asks whether the victors' names were revealed, and another says only the names. Someone is about to list them when the focus shifts to Hizutomi, who panics at what he hears. He cannot believe he is hearing his own IGN and those of his companions in real life. He never paid attention to that before he started playing, but there are a lot of SLF players out there. Realizing his own name is out there, he says he would not dare do a net search. Elephant Boy asks what he is talking about. Hizutomi says he thinks he has already built a reputation for himself before the new semester even started. Elephant Boy asks what he did and whether there is really something going on between him and Saiga. We then return to Mana's game shop. She is helping a client search for Sunraku, and the client is shocked to see the search results are in the triple digits. That client is none other than Hizutomi. He is surprised to find a rare bird Sunraku capture committee, because in his mind, he's clearly a human in the game. Mana asks if he realizes summer vacation is over, so why is he at the game shop in the middle of the day? Hizutomi counters by asking if that is how Mana Iwamaki is going to treat him. He says he is a regular customer and that he is there early because his school has only a half day. Mana says he is only a regular when he actually buys things from her. He has not bought anything since he bought SLF. Hizutomi admits she caught him and asks if Mana has any good crap games lately for 5,000 yen or less. Mana replies that she knows she has been a bad influence, but she hopes Hizutomi spends his youth on more useful things like regular games. Hizutomi says he does not need a lecture from someone who spent her whole summer addicted to hot dude dating sims. Mana says she is a dating sim freak and explains that she plays them to unlock all the secret scenes and then mails feedback to the devs. She starts thinking of bad games that would suit Hizutomi, who says an escape from reality game would be good. That surprises Mana, who asks when Hizutomi became so picky about what he buys. While she is asking, Saiga arrives. She looks sour, so Mana points to Hizutomi, but Saiga suddenly disappears. Mana is surprised and wonders why she did not come in. She thought Saiga and Hizutomi had a good thing going. She giggles and asks what she should do. Then she asks Hizutomi if he knows Saiga, a girl at his school, same grade. She is an SLF player and often mentions Hizutomi's name in their conversations. Sunraku is shocked to hear that, and so is Saiga outside, because Mana just outed her. Mana also asked if Hizutomi knew that Saiga would love to play together with him. Startled by what he heard, Hizutomi asked Mana if Saiga had really said that. Meanwhile, Saiga, who was eavesdropping outside the game shop, was also shocked by what Mana said. She could not believe Mana had sold her out. Mana, on the other hand, was delighted, saying all of them were in trouble now. Whenever she saw the two of them, she became extremely impatient, so she could not stop herself from pushing buttons she knew she should not push. Still, she just wanted to mess with them. Her heart kept yelling that it was childish, but her mind, permanently warped by dating sims, had long since stopped listening. Then she told Hizutomi to cut to the point already. She asked what he thought about Saiga. Hizutomi answered that Iwamaki was hyperventilating too much today. Mana Iwamaki insisted that Hizutomi answer, because if he did not, she would not let him buy the crappy game he really wanted, which shocked him. Hizutomi said that was low, but in Iwamaki's head she was impressed that her threat worked on him. Hizutomi then said that whatever he thought of Saiga, if she invited him to play, he would have no problem gaming with her. Iwamaki was stunned to hear that, and so was Saiga. Hizutomi wondered why Iwamaki reacted like that, and Iwamaki said that just now, at long last, they had set the biggest plot flag of all time, as far as she knew. Everything was set up for Rei Saiga, and now all she had to do was take one step forward. They were virtually playing the victory cutscene already. Meanwhile, Hizutomi asked if Iwamaki was going to show him the game or what. Iwamaki added that with just one moment of courage, everything would advance by a lot. At that moment, Saiga started to move, and Iwamaki urged her to knock on the door that was already opening. However, instead of that happening, Hizutomi walked out the door while Saiga hid. As that happened, Hizutomi wondered why he had asked for a game, but seemed to be getting educational software. Still, for 4,210 yen, he had gotten a brand new release for cheap. Then he told Iwamaki to let him know if she got other cool new garbage, while Saiga seemed to regret not approaching Hizutomi. Inside the game shop, Iwamaki was gloomy, and she just answered Hizutomi with "you bet." Then she stepped outside, which startled Rei Saiga. Saiga immediately grew defensive and said it was not like that. If it turned into a whole big thing, she said she became super nervous, like all the blood was draining out of her. Iwamaki was disappointed that her efforts had gone nowhere. Then she told Saiga it was time for a quick 1-hour post-mortem for just the two of them, and Saiga agreed. Meanwhile, Hizutomi had gotten home, and placed the newly bought game on his bedside table. He went straight to his luxurious gaming chair and said he could now open the new title he had purchased, but there were a few things he needed to check in SLF. Because of that, he opened the gaming chair and decided to peek into SLF for a moment. In the next scene, we go to Bilak's workshop, where some weapons were being worked on. Sunraku arrived and asked how things were going at the forge. He also asked if Bilak had fixed the thing he had asked about yesterday. Looking exhausted, Bilak muttered, "Oh, you people." Sunraku asked if she had slept enough or not, which shocked her. Furiously, Bilak yelled at Sunraku, asking if he thought she had slept enough after being forced to fix a gigantic mountain of garbage. She only had one body. Sunraku apologized and explained that he got stuck fighting in Reluyith for days. He knew he could have used Amol's door to finish the repairs in Rabituza Midway, but then he would not have been able to return to Reluyith. Bilak was shocked to hear Sunraku mention Reluyith. She said Sunraku had not only brought Amol, but also her other sibling Seacrew. He had even fought Katarnid and then returned alive. She nearly had kittens when she heard that yesterday. Sunraku answered that he was the most surprised of all, since they were dragged into Reluyith against their will. Then he asked if the repairs would take much longer. Bilak said no, because she was finishing up the patchwork and only a few bits and bobs remained. Sunraku was surprised and said Bilak truly was an ancient craftsman with that speed. However, Bilak reported that the Giltabril was a problem. It was not only scratched, the inner framework was also broken. It would take her almost a week to fix. Shocked, Sunraku asked if Bilak was joking. Bilak replied that the Giltabril was one step away from being a scrap pile, so Sunraku should be happy she was still fixing it. Sunraku said that changed a few things, and Bilak asked how. Sunraku scratched his head and said he had a lot he wanted Bilak to make, so maybe she could prioritize those first. Bilak was stunned to hear that. Sunraku continued that after getting so many materials, he was very curious what kind of gear Bilak could make from them. As he said that, he took out all the materials he had obtained. Bilak was overwhelmed, and Sunraku added that thanks to his inventoria, he had managed to bring back plenty of stuff, including all the treasure he could carry. There was nothing to worry about regarding payment, so Bilak should go hog wild. Because of that, Bilak threw Sunraku out of the shop and asked how long he planned to work her to the bone. Even so, she had already made a plan for what she would craft. Some of the things she intended to make were a helm, a waist belt, a fist weapon, a one-handed sword, and a shield as well. She asked Sunraku if those were enough for the time being. Sunraku said yes and thanked her, but he thought Bilak might flip out if he asked for more. Then he asked how long it would take to finish. Bilak said that between the repairs and the new items, probably about 4 hours. Because of that, Sunraku mentioned he had a bit of free space in his schedule and wondered if he could log out and kill time with the new game he had bought. At that moment, someone was sneaking behind Bilak, which surprised Sunraku and puzzled the ancient craftswoman. It was Aramis, who was about to kiss Bilak, whom he called his young ebon maiden. Bilak was so shocked by what he did that she punched him hard on the chin, sending him flying upward. She then told him to stay away. Sunraku said he had not seen Aramis in a long time. He joked that the couple's sketch he and Bilak made looked great and asked Aramis if his jawbone was okay. Bilak said she and Aramis were not a couple. She then asked why Aramis had come, calling him Aramis. Aramis sadly answered that he was not there for Bilak. He pointed at Sunraku and said he had come for none other than him, the Birdman who had won the friendship of the Vorpal bunnies and the respect of Lycagon the Night Slayer. Sunraku should rejoice, because Aramis had come to fulfill his promise to him. Sunraku wondered what promise Aramis meant, surprised that he had no idea. Aramis said surely Sunraku had not forgotten that he had offered them a king's ransom in fine jewels to craft accessories using them. With that, Sunraku remembered and said he had no use for those jewels, so that was neat. He had given them to Aramis, and he asked if Aramis had actually used them. Aramis remarked that Sunraku sounded indifferent. Bilak agreed, saying Sunraku had been focused on defeating Katarnid for a good while lately, and it seemed he had removed everything else from his mind. Aramis then asked if it could be that after Weathermon, Katarnid had also fallen to his blade. Sunraku grew embarrassed and said it looked like he had let the cat out of the bag. To Aramis, that was the news of the century, and he asked if Bilak had heard it, calling her now his princess of the night. Bilak told Aramis to be quiet, because she had gone through the same shock yesterday. Emol chimed in that her big sis had barely been able to contain herself. Aramis said son Raku never ceased to amaze him. He had truly proven himself worthy to own the finest works of art. Aramis had brought in a luxurious treasure box from Dardamo, the greatest jeweler in all of Kaziria. He told son Raku to watch and be amazed as he revealed the most wondrous accessories ever made, and a brilliant light flared that dazzled son Raku and Emol. The first item he presented was the Lapistella cloak, a pure white cloak with shoulder armor, crafted through a jewel weaving process and featuring the night sky sewn into the lining. It had stellar thread that shone brighter than any planet, layered to produce a network of connected stars capable of taking on magic. It let the wearer instantly cast a preset spell at any time, using the magic force the wearer had in stock. The second item was the Levin trigger, Hazard, a glove with glowing amber jewels covering the right hand, representing dark thunder enshrouded in amber. The hammer of amber was set off by the wearer's own will. It applied the special statuses Levin/Hazard. Levin was ancient lightning that caused extra damage, electrocution, and reduced status ailment resistance to the target. Hazard was a flame that caused an overflow effect, boosting all motion sensitivity and damaging 50% of all current HP every 10 seconds. Son Raku was delighted with what he received and asked if he had not gotten something truly amazing. He had never really bothered with accessory items before, but he had not expected them to affect his abilities this much. Bilak said that was because these items were special. The jewelry seen in Kaziria was absolutely obsessed, and the Dardamo they were talking about was the best jeweler Kaziria had. Aramis said he hoped this would cast him in a new light, but Bilak answered that Aramis was not the reason those items existed. He was merely the contact. Meanwhile, son Raku laughed and said he was very thankful. He had forgotten about them, so it felt like a bonus out of nowhere. However, most of what was in the descriptions caught his interest, so he needed to try them. When he tried to put on the glove, an error sign appeared. He did not have enough accessory slots to equip it, since he only had one slot, and it was already in use. He then asked what accessory slots were. Bilak asked if son Raku was playing with them, since he had not expanded his accessory slots this whole time. Son Raku was confused about the expansion Bilak mentioned. He opened the accessories tutorial. It stated that equipping an accessory took up one of the accessory slots. Players started at level 1 with one pre-installed slot. That capacity upgraded every 20 levels gained. The note added that upgrading slot capacity did not award an additional slot. To get more slots, a player needed to go to an accessory shop and request a slot expansion. Son Raku could not believe he had to go to an accessory shop because his slots did not increase automatically while leveling up, and he called that kind of a stupid pattern. He said he had been screwed over again for skipping the tutorial village. If it was that important, the game should be designed to force the player to go to the tutorial village. Emol asked who he was ranting at. Son Raku told Emol he could not ignore it, and that they would go to 5th Tizia right now to look for an accessory shop. Bilak told him to chill, because they had one in Rabbituza. Son Raku was surprised there was one, and Emol said they sure did. In fact, it was run by another of her big sisters, Fwl. In the next scene, we arrive at a place filled with doll-like stitched-up figures placed neatly on shelves. There, Fwl is singing while sewing a doll. At that moment, Emol arrives and greets her big sis. Fwl is surprised to see her loveliest little sister Emol, and asks if the one with her is the bird gentleman she has heard so much about. Son Raku says cool, and asks if it is a verbal tick of Fwl's to add so many extra R's to the word bird. Fwl then introduces herself, saying she runs a humble little accessory shop here in Rabbituza. She says she is enchanted to meet son Raku, then asks what brings him there. Son Raku replies that he had a few accessories made by a jeweler in Kaziria, which prompts her to exclaim goodness. She remarks on how he has all these fancy connections, but wonders why a high roller like him would have business with a little speck of a shop like hers, since she doubts she knows more about jewelry than they do. Son Raku's mood shifts, and he asks if she just gave him a backhanded jab. Emol chimes in that her big sis is not wrong though. Son Raku admits, reluctantly, that he didn't even know you had to unlock slots before you could equip accessories. He heard that Fwl could do that for him, which is why he came. Fwl corrects him, saying he is referring to expanding his soul crevices. Sunraku asks what soul something is, since it is yet another new term for him. Regardless, FWL says it is not a problem and tells Sunraku to let her roll up her sleeves. FWL adjusts herself and, once ready, asks to see Sunraku's hand, which confuses him. While inspecting his hand, FWL notes that he currently has one soul crevice, and it is occupied by the bracelet he is wearing. However, she is amazed to see he has room for 4 more soul crevices. Sunraku is shocked, immediately telling her to hook him up. FWL pulls out a needle and warns Sunraku that he might feel a small prick. Confused, he watches as she stabs his hand with the needle, causing him to yell in pain. He says it hurts like hell, or maybe not actually. Definitely not servile after all. And as he says this, he is shaking non-stop, so FWL tells him to hold still. From the hole of the needle, 4 electricity-like lines connect, emerging from Sunraku. She pulls on them until they snap. Sunraku is stunned by what FWL just did, as she announces that she is finished. Now he has a veritable gaggle of soul crevices, all ready to be loaded up with accessories. Sunraku asks if the process really had to be that terrifying, and if all players have to go through that heart attack-inducing gauntlet. Looking at his interface, he sees that he now has 5 unlocked slots. FWL explains that the needle was just her personal touch, as she could have done it easily with just her hands. Annoyed, Sunraku says he never asked for her personal touch, and that anyone with needle phobia would be stuck in 1 slot for the whole game because of it. FWL changes the topic, asking if it is true that Sunraku held his own against Lycagon with just 1 soul crevice. Imol proudly adds that he even beat Katarnid in that same condition. FWL remarks that someone like Sunraku could knock her down with a single feather. She jokes that if players like him can muddle along just fine with 1 crevice, how is she supposed to keep her shop alive? Should she start preparing to look for a new profession? Sunraku then says he did not expect her to jab at him verbally like that. Still, no hard feelings. Now that he has more slots, he starts equipping some of his stuff. First is the Lapis Stella cloak, and then his glove, the Levin trigger, hazard, making him look like a superhero. He even strikes a superhero pose, prompting FWL to call it awful, though she quickly takes it back and says it is bold. Imol says he looks like a half-naked caped weirdo. Sunraku tells them he already knows, so they do not need to point it out. Given his topless form with just a cape and mask, he says it's impossible not to feel like a luchador, so he asks if he should figure out his signature finisher. FWL then says that since his soul crevices are working now, they might as well discuss payment. So Sunraku remembers he still needs to pay. FWL offers to show him some accessories she made, since he has free crevices. Sunraku calls it jumping right into the hard sell, comparing her to Elki because they are both money grubbers in his eyes. Even so, he looks at FWL's goods, commenting that they look like a bunch of dolls to him. FWL calls them her children, explaining that they absorb any evil that might be infecting the body and bring good luck. For example, the goblin doll will constantly refill energy over time little by little. Sunraku asked if that's basically an HP regen doll. From this, he infers that each doll has a different effect, so he can't go wrong having 1 or 2. He is about to ask how much they cost, but suddenly remembers something, which surprises FWL. Sunraku says he brought back a ton of booty from the sunken ship, so he can drop money like a megaton bomb right now. His pockets are as deep as the Mariana Trench, and he will buy every single doll FWL has, from one end of the shelf to the other. Sunraku is thrilled about how awesome it feels to be loaded, feeling the rush. Imol remarks that Sunraku is now part of the bourgeoisie. FWL said she adores a man who knows how to throw around money. In the next scene, Sunraku and Imol leave FWL's accessory shop. FWL bids him farewell by telling him not to be a stranger. Imol asks where they are going, so Sunraku says he doubts Bielak has finished the gear he requested, and while he's there, he wants to try out all the accessories he can equip. He then wonders where could he test them in Rabbituza. Imol says he knows the perfect spot. You sure do, Sunraku replies in agreement. They then move to another location in town, inside an arena. Sunraku comments that it has been a long time since he set foot there. Imol asks if he took off his cloak, and he says yes because it's pretty heavy. All that fabric just gets in his way when he's doing things. Plus, it's straightforward, you just load a spell into it, and you can cast it anytime later. The gloves are trickier for him, so he wants to examine those. He knows they apply assorted effects when triggered, but he does not understand the extra overflow status. It has two effects. First, it removes 50% of his remaining HP every 10 seconds, which is definitely not a benefit, but it also boosts all his motion sensitivity. If that means he can move a lot faster, that is a huge benefit for him, maybe even too big. So they should try it out already, since he wants to see what he can do. Off we go, Emol shouts. Sunraku asks how to trigger it, but immediately realizes there is amber on the right thumb. He figures he just has to press it to the left side of his chest. He does so, and immediately feels the power surge through him. For a limited period of time, Sunraku gains the Levin hazard effect. The sheer impact of it makes him curse, as it is unbelievably powerful. He even leaves Emol behind due to his speed, feeling the power surging through his whole body, as if the energy inside him is completely running amok. At that moment, Bilak senses something. Aramis asks her what bothers her, so she said she thought she heard an explosion, but maybe not. She then asks how long Aramis plans to hang around her forge, since she needs to work, but it seems he doesn't want to leave. In the following scene, we return to Sunraku, who is lying on a bed and staring blankly. He wonders why he is in his room in Rabbituza and what happened to him. He sees that he has a death penalty, meaning all his stats are lowered for a limited time. Shocked that he died, he hears Emol enter, calling his name. Surprised, he asks why she is there. Emol says she knew she would find him there. Sunraku asks her to clue him in, as he only remembers just running. So why did he die at some point? Emol says she will show him, and he should just follow her. Sunraku follows Emol, and is stunned by what he sees, a huge dent in a wall. Emol explains that he was running so fast, he crashed into that wall. Sunraku realizes he was distracted by the energy surge and slammed into it instantly, showing him just how out of control the power is. Still, he says he likes it. This is exactly what he has been waiting for, and he is making it his business to wrangle abilities as broken as that glove. He hopes the Levin trigger hazard likes to work with him, because he will do everything to master it. The two return to the arena, with Emol cheering Sunraku on, telling him he could control the glove's power this time for sure. Once again, Sunraku activated the special status Levin hazard. This granted him added damage upon contact, lower resistance to status ailments for his attack target, and electricity absorption. He also had hazard overflow and a boost to all motion sensitivity, making him move again at hyperfast speed. He was moving so fast that the ground smoked whenever he tried to stop. He marveled at the speed and effects the gloves granted him, telling himself he needed to calm down and stay still. Then he looked at something that gave him reassurance, the wall covered in dents shaped like his body, revealing he had slammed into it 4 times already. That gave him some relief, since this time he had managed to stop himself. He noted that, at least in terms of running a few steps and stopping, he was finally getting used to it, though he did not sound entirely sure. Emol praised him for his progress, thrilled that he was no longer splattering himself against the wall, at least. But then he twitched, and his glove-wearing hand suddenly moved on its own, punching himself in the chin. Emol grew worried for him, while he began to panic. He tried to go for a soft landing, but his body went haywire, completely losing control, which worried Emol even more. In the end, it resulted in his death once again, earning him another penalty for death. He respawned in his room in Rabbituza, saying he felt the glove was not ready for battle use yet. He had let his guard down for just a millisecond, and it started acting as if his animation was bugging out. That, plus the overflow issue, gave him yet another problem with the glove, aside from its hair trigger movement. He looked again at the glove's description. It drained 50% of his current HP every 10 seconds. He figured that was debuff type damage, given the 50% drain every interval. At first, he thought that having his HP would not kill him, but it also involved the Fool Arcanum. The Fool's effect halved his skill recast time, but doubled the damage from any debuffs applied to him. This also applied to the damage overflow, meaning the damage he took was 50 times 2 or 100% damage after 10 seconds. However, after testing the glove more, he found it did not work like poison damage. Instead of killing him outright, it only cut his HP down. At least that was a silver lining. as it meant he was fine so long as nothing hit him while using it. Still, the pressing issue was controlling the hypersensitive physical motion. At that moment, while looking through his skill menu, he spotted something surprising, a skill he had barely noticed before: moment sight. It was just as messed up as the glove, but if he combined the two, maybe it would work. Then he heard Amol's voice speaking to someone, saying that he was there. She was talking to Aramis, who was surprised to see Sunraku there. Sunraku asked why Aramis had come. He replied that he decided to visit the arena, only to spot Sunraku looking rather twisted and mangled before vanishing. So, he asked the sibling of his dark-haired Madonna to guide him to Sunraku. Amol confirmed she had done so, and Sunraku understood why Aramis was there. He asked if Aramis needed something from him, to which Aramis replied that he did, as he carried a message from his lady, Bilak. Bilak's message was that Sunraku's weapons and armor were finished and ready for him to collect. Sunraku was surprised so much time had already passed. He mentioned that he had something he wanted to test right now, but Amol advised that it would not be a good idea to make Bilak any angrier. Sunraku admitted that was a good point and said he needed to start boosting her opinion of him again. His nerves were too frazzled anyway, so he could think about the glove later, after picking up his gear and getting some rest. Amol said she was excited to see what he was getting. Aramis then addressed Sunraku, saying he noticed Sunraku seemed to be testing the items he had given him earlier and asked how they were. Sunraku replied that so far, he had only used the Levin trigger hazard, which was much harder to handle than he had imagined, which was a bit of a shock to him. Now he understood why hazard was part of its name. Aramis agreed, saying it was not for no reason, because a hazard reflected the danger of the power contained within the amber. That made Sunraku curious about the danger. Aramis explained that there were 5 categories: crude, dense, pure, hazard, and superior. Of these, hazard could grant greater power than even superior, the highest grade, but it was said to often bite its owner like a snake. Sunraku noted how dangerous that sounded, saying no wonder. Then he asked Aramis what exactly the jeweler from Kaziria had made for him. Aramis answered that they had simply given an extraordinary knight like Sunraku a suitably worthy item to match. He told Sunraku to be proud, though Sunraku said he would not be proud of such crap. Still, inwardly, he knew the glove had great potential benefits. The main question now was how many more wall impacts it would take before he became proficient at using it. Amol told him she knew he could do it. Before long, they arrived at Bilak's forge, where she greeted them warmly. Sunraku asked if she had finished what he had requested, noting she seemed in a better mood than he expected. Bilak said that all the materials Sunraku had brought were of extremely high quality, so much so that she had trouble figuring out what to use where, so she was very proud of her work. That excited Sunraku, so she said she would start with the sword. She handed him the Blue Predator, an aqua-colored single-edged sword made from steel-reinforced bone, which dealt extra damage to aquatic monsters. Sunraku liked its heft. Bilak admitted she was not used to working with ocean beast components, so she had used another sword as a reference while hammering away, and was pleased with the results. Amol asked if it was not 2 swords this time, but Sunraku said no, as he wanted to equip something else in his other hand. Bilak asked if he would pair it with the next item, which was made from the skull of an Atlanticus lepnorca. It was a re-legacy weapon she was very proud of, the Dissipator, a shield that delighted Sunraku. He said he had never considered guarding against attacks before, preferring to just dodge. However, now that he had a stat-inverse item, he could quickly gain much more vitality under certain conditions. With that shield, he could greatly expand his battle repertoire. He was surprised when something appeared in his game menu and asked Bilak about it. He noted that the Dissipator was listed as a large shield in his item list, which he asked if that meant it was really big. Bilak was surprised Sunraku still noticed that, so she said it was the neatest thing about it. She then told Sunraku to try tensing up with his left hand. Curious, Sunraku followed her instruction to tense his left hand slightly. Instantly, the shield expanded, shocking both him and Amol. He was thrilled it could transform into a much larger shield. Bilak said it was a true re-legacy weapon. Sunraku exclaimed how neat it was, repeatedly opening and closing it. So Bilak told him to stop playing with it. Sunraku said he loved it, calling Bilak a true master blacksmith. She told him not to start worshipping her yet, as she still had a helmet and loincloth for him. She said the result was amazing, though she was annoyed she could not make a full outfit from them. She had used a lot of Arctis Regalicus materials for this set, the Lace Demon Helm and Lace Demon Girdle. Sunraku said the names sounded so cool. He thought the whole set looked kick-ass and suggested trying everything he had gotten that day at one go. Emul said she could not wait to see it. Sunraku then equipped the Blue Predator, Dissipator, Lace Demon Helm, Lace Demon Girdle, Levin Trigger Hazard, Lapistella Cloak, and Inventoria Key all at once. He remarked that he looked like he had just stepped out of Sparta, prompting the others to wonder what that was. Emul admitted she was not sure where Sparta was but thought they dressed oddly. Sunraku said never mind. It was not like weird had not been the trend for a while. Belak said all that remained was the fist strips, which reminded Sunraku that he had also asked for them. However, he wanted to test the sword and shield first, so he told Emul they should go to the arena, but Belak stopped them. Sunraku said he would be back after testing, and she could give him the whole spiel then, but Belak said that was not what she meant. She asked if he remembered all the things he had broken during the fight with Katarnit. She had fixed them all except the Gilta Brill, for which Sunraku thanked her. Then she asked if her father had said anything to him about Katarnit. Sunraku was confused, wondering whose father she meant, then realized she meant Vysash. Belak seemed shocked and asked if Sunraku was telling her he had not met Vysash yet. She suggested maybe Sunraku had not meant to snub his father, but did he realize he had dragged 2 of Vysash's children into a fight against Katarnit, a colossus? Wasn't the polite thing to do to meet Vysash first after the Katarnit event? She warned him that if her father got angry, they would not be able to contain him, so Sunraku should be prepared. In the next scene, Sunraku finally met Vysash, who asked if it was true that he had been busy taking his precious children and making them fight Katarnit. He remarked that Sunraku sure had guts to pull such nonsense. Then he demanded the full story from Sunraku, who trembled in fear. He added that depending on what Sunraku told him, his punishment could be very severe. Emul asked her father how much hell he would give Sunraku. Because of what Sunraku heard, he got scared since Vysash was supposedly super pissed off at him for dragging along his 2 children into a battle against Katarnid, a colossus. He also remembered Belak telling him that the polite thing to do would be to meet with Vysash first when he returned. Sunraku wondered if he was heading for a sea cruise in cement shoes or if Vysash would demand seppuku from him. Then, Vysash suddenly laughed, patting Sunraku on the back while saying he was just joking. He said it had been so long since he last saw Sunraku that he could not resist but gripe about it. Vysash then asked why Sunraku looked so scared, pointing out that he looked the same way when they first met. Sunraku softly replied that he sure did. Vysash then called out to Emul, who promptly answered with "Yes, Dad." He asked his daughter if she enjoyed it, which Emul did not seem to expect. Nonetheless, she replied that she of course enjoyed it, since the fight against Katarnid had been a real big adventure. Vysash took a puff from his pipe and said that if Emul enjoyed it, he had no complaints, before telling Sunraku to keep up the good work. Sunraku answered, "Yes, sir," relieved that he was now free. Then, Vysash asked him if he had obtained the items they had discussed earlier. Sunraku had no clue what he meant, but recalled their earlier talk about the truth of the world, and how Vysash had requested a receiver, positioner, and transmitter. Vysash remarked that he bet Sunraku had reached the barren dark ruin a long time ago, not realizing that Sunraku had forgotten about it in his rush to meet Mordo and Rust, which got sidetracked when Lycagon appeared and the trip to barren dark ruin was pushed aside. That was followed by a week spent locked in Reluiath, which made him completely forget about it. Vysash waited in silence for an answer, and when Sunraku remained quiet, he suddenly yelled at him not to tell him he had forgotten about it. Panicking, Sunraku insisted that of course he had not forgotten. How could he forget? Sunraku responds, when in fact he and Emul were on their way there right now. Emul confirmed it, going along with his improvisation. Sunraku then opened his current scenarios and saw the Vorpal Epic Bonus Unique Scenario. Something about it clearly surprised him, prompting Vysash to ask what it was. Sunraku was about to explain, when Vysash told him to just do it whenever he wanted, since there was no reason to rush. However, once he obtained the items, he wants him to come back. Sunraku agreed, and Vysash shut the door on him. Emol then asked Sunraku what that was about with her father, and Sunraku replied that he had a hunch about Visash's scenario, a bonus unique no less. That hunch seemed to be true. Meanwhile, Visash himself still could not believe Sunraku had defeated Katarnid, and thought that things might progress a lot faster than he had anticipated. The scene then shifted to Fifticia, where a man was asking his companion if they had found Sunraku. His companion said there were no signs of him, prompting the man to ask if he was sure Sunraku was still in Fifticia. Another man remarked that they had plenty of people watching all the town's entrances and would get a male bird if Sunraku was spotted. Yet another man suggested that maybe he had just logged out of the game for all they knew. The leader ordered them to keep looking, saying this was their big chance for some valuable info. Then, someone reported seeing a topless guy with a bird head, and when asked where, they clarified it was someone else named Yamaoki, not Sunraku. They dismissed it as just a cosplayer and warned the others not to be fooled by the bird head. Someone else complained about how easy it was to imitate Sunraku with just entry-level gear. Unbeknownst to them, the real Sunraku was watching from an alley, surprised there were still so many people out that late. He thought it would be hard to leave town without being spotted. Emol asked what they would do, since they needed to get to the barren dark ruin. Sunraku said doesn't mind turning it into a PvP stealth game, but did it really have to start from that town? He only wanted to scope out how things were in Fifticia before leaving. He then asked Emol if he could get another warp gate so they could leave before anyone saw them. Emol asked if he wanted to go back to Rabbituza, but Sunraku told her to go to Levantar instead. Using Emol's warp gate, they teleported. Sunraku explained that the barren dark ruin was located between Fifticia and Levantar. With a solid rumor now spreading that he was in Fifticia, all his stalkers would be crowding there, leaving other cities less guarded. As long as he can leave city limits, he would be safe. Soon enough, he reached a vast, open field, making him less likely to encounter players. He remarked that Emol had been very useful, since they had really managed to evade those searching for him, to which Emol agreed. Sunraku then removed his bulky cape, noting they were back in the barren dark ruin for the second time. The last time, they had just been beelining from one point to the next, so he suggested they explore the inside of the dark ruin itself. Emol said it sounded great. Sunraku noted that Ray had said the monsters inside were stronger than those outside. Emol asked what kind of monsters, but Sunraku admitted he had forgotten their names, though he remembered a pretty mean line knight. Emol was puzzled by the term line, and Sunraku admitted he did not know either, since he had not asked for details so as not to ruin the fun. He said they would find out soon enough, and as he spoke, they entered the dark ruin. The creaky dark room they stepped into prompted Emol to comment on how dark it was, to which Sunraku agreed, adding that it was nighttime in-game. Then, to their surprise, the lights suddenly came on. Sunraku noted that when they went underground to look for the reactor, the power was on as well, though he had no idea how the power worked. He observed that the surroundings and mentioned they did not seem to match the building, and asked how the story went again about some old nation that had used ruins from the era of divinity as a castle. Emol said it was from the War of Unification or something. Sunraku remarked that history repeats itself, first as tragedy, etc. The original builders, he said, were more advanced than the later inhabitants. He added that the Lore clan would probably tell him all kinds of stuff if he asked about it, but he would get in trouble if he ran into the alleged magic girl right now. If he wandered into the professor, he would lock him up for a whole year. Emol then pointed out that the door inside the building was open. Sunraku noted it was pretty sturdy even within the ruins. Still, things seemed a lot calmer there than he had heard. Just then, he spotted something standing in the middle of a large room, and Emol saw it too. Sunraku exclaimed, "Aha," as he realized that when they had mentioned a line monster, this was what Ray had meant. The line monster raised its sword, and they learned its name was Counter Knight. Sunraku noted it was a see-through line monster with nothing inside. Emol said she thought there were no other monsters nearby. Sunraku commented that the Counter Knight seemed to want a one-on-one. How chivalrous of the knight, he added. He told Emol to step back since he did not need her help, but she refused. Sunraku drew the Dissipator and the Blue Predator, saying he did not need special support skills, just the right moves to prove himself. He challenged the Counter Knight, calling it Mr. Sketchman. He leapt at the knight, which did the same, and as they clashed, Sunraku remarked that if the knight wanted a fair fight, he would give it one. It was a one-on-one duel to the death, and he blocked the knight's first strike. The clash between the two was so powerful that they were blown back from the recoil, while Emul jumped backward to distance herself. She was overjoyed since what was unfolding before her eyes was a one-on-one duel, and she told Sunraku that she wanted to see his full Vorpal soul on display. The two prepared to clash again, and Sunraku commented that his opponent was nothing more than a knight made entirely of lines. In a flashback, Sunraku recalled Rei telling him that if he ever encountered the Line Knight, she wouldn't recommend fighting it, which made Sunraku wonder if it was truly that tough. From this, Sunraku inferred that the Line Knight must be powerful enough to give even Rei a pause. He then added that he couldn't wait to see what kind of loot the Line Knight would drop, and with that, he charged in once more. The knight parried his attack, and Sunraku thought to himself that his blue predator sword was meant to shine when battling sea monsters. Regardless, this was going to be the debut of that very sword. He couldn't wait to beat down his foe using all the gear he had acquired, like Dissipator and Blue Predator. He delivered a strong slash to the knight's side, but the knight gripped its sword tighter and countered with a massive slash of its own. This forced Sunraku to leap backward. He noted that he hadn't applied any skills to his attack, yet the knight, unguarded, had still taken it and didn't bat an eye. Based on the hit effect, he didn't think his strike had been cancelled out. But as sketchy as the knight looked, it was far too durable. Suddenly, the knight struck him with a side swipe slash, but he managed to block it with Dissipator. He remarked that he would have been hit dead on if not for his shield. He cursed as he realized that the knight understood he couldn't be staggered, so it exploited that by adjusting its strategy. Sunraku observed that for a non-boss opponent, the AI of the knight was ridiculously advanced. Still, there had to be an opening somewhere that he can use. In his mind, he defined the difference between monster fights and PvP battles in terms of openings the foe gives. For minion-level foes meant to be mowed down, the developers always coded in exploitable openings no matter how strong they were. But those weren't real openings, the kind that naturally emerged in the flow of combat against a human-like foe. Things like pausing to catch a breath, and so on. Similar to how a composer places rests in the middle of musical notes. At that moment, Sunraku spotted the opening he had been searching for. It was so obvious that he wondered how he hadn't noticed it earlier. What he had noticed was the way the knight's left shoulder armor shifted every time it attacked. Meanwhile, Emul was puzzled by what Sunraku was doing. Sunraku thought that maybe he was beginning to understand why Rei wasn't a fan of the Contour Knight, because pure brute force wouldn't work here. While he reflected on that, the Contour Knight swung another massive uppercut slash, but fortunately Sunraku ducked under it. This exposed the knight's guard, giving him a chance to strike. However, the knight immediately followed up with another attack, which Sunraku deflected with his shield. That caught him off guard, and the force of the push sent him flying back from the knight. Emul then asked Sunraku what was going on, urging him to explain. Sunraku answered that the lines making up the knight served only as armor that protected what was inside. Attacking the armor wouldn't do much. Emul was shocked when Sunraku mentioned that the knight had insides, asking if that was really the case. So Sunraku told her to look closer. Wasn't the knight made out of a bunch of lines? Sunraku asked. Yet they couldn't see through to the rear side, he then says. If it was truly nothing but lines, then they should also be able to see the lines on the other side. Emul looked carefully and realized Sunraku was right, shocked by what she saw, so she asked why is that. Just then, the knight leaped forward to attack Sunraku again. Sunraku blocked with his shield and explained that while he didn't fully understand the knight's inner workings, he suspected its equipment created the illusion of being made of lines by simply displaying the background behind it. Emul then asked if that meant Sunraku needed to strike not at the lines, but at whatever was inside. Sunraku replied that the best target was wherever the knight had the fewest lines covering it. After saying this, he clashed again with the knight and was blown back by its strength. He commented that the knight's AI was weirdly intelligent and incredibly tough too. Emul added that the knight was just as difficult as the rumors they had heard. Sunraku agreed, saying he could think of a few ways to approach it, but decided that he would defeat it using his new equipment. He set aside his sword and said he would test whether he could tame this wild horse of his. He activated his skill, Moment Sight, and when the knight leapt forward, he saw the knight's attack in slow motion. This skill accelerated his thought processing, creating a sort of slow motion effect around him. It seemed like a useful tool based on its description, but Sunraku admitted he wasn't used to it yet. The enemies appeared slowed down because of his boosted thought speed, but when using the skill, he often mistimed his opponent's attacks. Only his thoughts sped up, but his physical body did not, leaving him feeling numb. He wanted to believe he had good reflexes, but when using Moment Sight, he starts mistiming enemies he could normally dodge. The skill, ironically, increased his chances of being hit. He wondered how exactly it functioned and if it fried his brains or not. Because of this uncertainty, he refrained from using it in actual battles until he figured it out a little better. Then, he balled up his fist as if preparing to punch the knight, surprising Amol, who thought he hadn't mastered the glove yet. However, Sunraku pressed on, pounding his chest with the glove to activate Levin Hazard. Energy surged through his body, and he explained if he pairs thought acceleration with motion acceleration, it would allow him to unleash both at full power. He taunted the knight, saying if it was going to charge at him with its lines, he had the perfect comeback. The knight was shocked with what Sunraku had done, who had met its attack with his shield, embedding it into the knight's lines. The force of the clash sent both of them flying a great distance once again. The knight slammed into a wall, while Sunraku was hurled toward his sword. As he flew, his twitching hand reached out, and he realized he could grab his weapon. He could do that now, he thinks, and in that moment, fully in control, he succeeded in reclaiming his sword. The force of his impact freed the blade from the ground, and he landed cleanly on his feet. He slid across the floor without issue and mocked the knight, saying he finally had found an opening. In his mind, he reasoned that if the lines and surfaces are on the table, then only one piece was missing. That single point he was striking now, the knight's chest. He drove the blue predator into it, piercing through and cracking the knight's armor until it finally shattered. The line-made armor collapsed, leaving Amol astonished that Sunraku had defeated it. Sunraku was delighted, realizing he now had control over Levin Hazard. Amol added that she had never seen him move so gracefully with the glove on, and Sunraku admitted that he went in without a safety net, but it had worked out. With the knight finally down, he eagerly anticipated the long-awaited loot. He wondered aloud what kind of drops he could expect from such a foe, but to his shock, nothing dropped. Amol remarked that it looked like the knight hadn't dropped anything at all. Sunraku refused to accept it, calling it crazy. The opponent had been so strong it even scared Ray, so why was there no reward? He questioned whether the knight was really strong enough to challenge Ray, and then it hit him. Back when Ray had told him she didn't recommend fighting the Line Knight, Sunraku gained an expectation that the Line Knight must be a hard yet rewarding monster to battle. Sunraku had insisted back then that Ray not spoil the fight, and Ray only wanted to say that while the Line Knight was indeed a pain to defeat, it gave no drops at all and no experience, even if one maxed out all levels. It was just a non-boss enemy, so defeating it was meaningless, but Ray didn't want to ruin the surprise for him. Now, in the present, Sunraku finally realized that this was what Ray had meant when she said the Line Knight wasn't recommended. Furious, he raged at the emptiness of the fight and told Amol he wouldn't leave Darkin until he found some rare items. Amol asked why he was so obsessed with loot, and Sunraku explained that this was simply how gamers like him were. In the next scene, we hear the loud clanking of knights' armor because a huge number of them are chasing the two of them. Amol looks terrified right now, while Sunraku says it is such BS that an absurd swarm of knights is after them, who even asked for extra variants of that annoying minion enemy. Amol says there are way too many chasing them now. Sunraku asks what happened to one-on-one chivalry. Amol answers that it is probably because Sunraku has been sprinting full speed from room to room, so the crowd keeps growing. She says she will try her luck against the knights this time. As soon as she says it, she uses Magic Edge. It lands squarely on a knight's chest, but the knight does not seem affected at all. It even looks like the skill was absorbed. Amol is shocked that the knights absorbed it, and Sunraku replies that she may have just boosted the knights for him. Amol screams in fright, so Sunraku tells her to ignore the knights. They already fought them once, and that was enough for him. He is not unhurried enough to waste time on dudes that do not drop anything. He also has school tomorrow, and he needs to take care of Visash's request, fetch the quest item, and get it back to him. Imul wonders what this school is that Sunraku mentioned. Sunraku says the real question is where he can find the items he needs in this old manor. The items are a receiver, a transmitter, and a positioner. Visash asked him for those as part of the bonus unique scenario, so they are at least a little bit vital. In fantasy games, if something is very important, it is usually placed at the top of the castle. Imul says they already passed a stairway just now, pointing to a stairway on Sunraku's right. Sunraku answers that if he just goes up more floors, more line knights will probably spawn. He needs Imul to stay calm for his sake, but Imul shouts that it is Sunraku's fault anyway. Sunraku says that based on the names of the items Visash wants, he assumes they were made back in the Age of Divinity. A receiver, transmitter, and positioner sound like they belong to the core of a facility, such as an operations room or something like that. In his head, this building was used by people in the Age of Divinity while they fought gigantic creatures. If you are being pummeled by enemies that large, he doubts people would place the nerve center at the top of a building where it is most vulnerable to attack. Then he tells Imul that if they're going somewhere, it is down to the basement. Even so, he is craving real information on the Divinity era now. Otherwise, it will be hard to figure out what is going on. Imul then says 7 more line knights have joined the chase. Sunraku says he bets this building has plenty of secrets to reveal to him. If he already knows they need to go underground, he is keen to examine more, so they should head there. Imul is surprised by what Sunraku wants to examine, because she has not seen any stairs that lead to a basement. For that matter, there is no way they can examine anything with a whole platoon of knights chasing them. Sunraku agrees with Imul, but tells her not to worry. If they can get into the basement, it will solve both of their problems. Imul asks if that is really true, while Sunraku says it is already in sight. What he means for them to enter is the elevator in front of them, the one with the down arrow. Imul is shocked, because just a minute ago, they tried to open it and could not. So Sunraku says either there is no power or it is broken. Imul starts to panic because the knights are closing in. Sunraku says the frame has been pried apart, so the elevator is probably broken. Right now, he says that looking through the hole in the twisted frame, he knows what he sees, a shaft leading downward. Imul asks what he is talking about, because whether it leads down or not, they cannot reach it if the door will not open. The only opening is a small hole he himself could not squeeze through. Sunraku says wriggling through will not happen. He glances at the knights and says they do not have time to break the door down, and he is sure that is not possible anyway. Even so, thanks to the Lapistella cloak he is wearing, he has magic at his fingertips. Imul is about to ask what he means, but he gets there first and says that if he pre-installs a magic spell and a bit of MP inside the cloak, he can launch any spell he wants at any time without consuming additional MP. The spell he has set in the cloak now is the one Imul used to try to help him when he was being hurled upward by the mud digger. He gets ready to move, while Imul yells that the knights are about to catch them. Sunraku focuses on the small hole in the elevator door, and just as the knights attack, he uses the teleport spell from his cloak. Because of that, Sunraku and Imul vanish from the knights' line of attack, and with their targets gone, the knights slam into the elevator door. Sunraku successfully teleports using the cloak, and we learn that the destination depends on what he can see. Basically, as long as he can see even a sliver of what is on the other side, he can teleport through any hole, no matter how tiny. He taunts the devs, asking if they liked that, and bets they wish they had debugged it a bit. Luckily, he thought to put teleport in the cloak first. We also learn that he asked Imul for any spare magic scrolls, because he wanted something he could test with the cloak. Imul is surprised and asks why Sunraku would use her stuff for that. Back in the present, Sunraku asks Imul what she thinks, and says he can use it in all kinds of nefarious ways. Imul replies that they may have a different problem, because they are falling straight down the shaft right now. Sunraku says of course they are, because that was his goal, making Imul scream in fright. He adds that he can see a faint light ahead, but there is nothing visible at the bottom. So he wonders if it is very deep, and if he is outside player bounds or something. Imul asks why Sunraku is so calm about their situation. Sunraku says they are fine. In another world, he runs deliveries through outer space with lasers and debris flying all over the place. The watchword there is, "Trust me," but Imol seems unwilling to trust. As he says that, Sunraku removes his Lapistella cloak. Then Sunraku activates Gravity Zero. He plants his feet on the wall and explains that when the backs of his feet are stuck to a wall or ceiling, gravity pulls toward that surface for him alone. Now they can storm downward without a care. Imol gets annoyed that he keeps saying, "Just trust me." Sunraku says that even with all that progress, he still cannot see the end. He then asks how many feet this elevator goes down. He is starting not to like this. Gravity Zero will last only 6 more seconds, and when it ends, he will go into a complete free fall. Even if he uses Flitfoot to create footholds in midair, he is going so fast he will just crush them. At this point, he asks himself whether he made the wrong call. Even so, he refuses to bow out yet, because he still has Levin Hazard. He uses the new glove and pairs it with Moment Sight. Because of that, he descends the elevator shaft at high speed. Imol screams at how fast they are going, while Sunraku implies he wants to go even faster. Gravity Zero has only 3 seconds left, so he needs to reach the bottom now. As he says it, he spots the base of the shaft. He and Imol crash into the very bottom, and a huge cloud of dust billows up from the shaft. Sunraku then shouts in celebration that he made it out alive. Laughing, he asks Imol whether she enjoyed the ride, and if it was pretty thrilling. Imol does not answer, so Sunraku asks what is the matter. Imol, twitching, says she feels like her whole body is buzzing. Sunraku realizes Levin Hazard has an electrocution effect that applies paralysis to targets in contact with the wearer. He tells Imol that, and then has her drink a status ailment removing potion like a child. Imol says she will never believe Sunraku's "trust me again." Sunraku replies that, just as he thought, nothing they went through was a bug. It is a route set up for players to follow. There is a whole other map in this underground area. Of course, he might have skipped a lot of required steps to get down here, but it is not his fault he can do it. As he says that, he notices something to his left, a large hole. He wonders if the area goes even deeper. Imol asks Sunraku what machine she is looking at. Sunraku tells her not to touch anything. They do not know where a trap might be waiting for them. Suddenly, something appears on the machine Imol is pointing to, and Sunraku wonders what it is. He immediately asks if it is an AR hologram. In addition, he sees the clothing of the man in the hologram and asks if the video is from the Age of Divinity. In the next scene, the hologram person laughed with joy because he had finally reached the route he wanted. At long last, he said he had arrived at the very base of that thing. He added that common soldiers were still being sent to their deaths on the surface, so perhaps he ought to give them some praise. After all, they had served as the foundation of his great breakthrough. Sunraku then asked who this obvious mad scientist figure was. Imol replied that she had no idea, but she definitely disliked him. Because of that, Sunraku told her not to be like that, since they did not know who he was or what kind of information could be hidden there. Surely, it had all come out of the blue, and he had no idea what was happening. He then wondered if they could still find more video data from another point before where they currently were. Then he heard the hologram say the words, "Inheritor my ass." To hell with the next generation talk. The man in the hologram added that he admitted Setsuna Amatsuki was certainly gifted when it came to posing theories and such. Upon hearing Setsuna's name from the hologram, Sunraku was shocked. The man added that he had no more praise for the rest. Everything else was just so ridiculous. If everyone living in that very moment died, then there was no point in anything they were doing. He declared that Alice Frontier and Julius Shangri-La had both gone insane. Sunraku was also shocked to hear Alice's name, because that wasn't the first time he heard that name, remembering that Weathermon had mentioned it before. He was astonished that the names Setsuna of bygone days and Alice, the one Weathermon had brought up, popped up at the same time. The man continued, claiming that he knew he alone was mankind's savior and no one else. He said they had all descended from the sky, and that was their domain. There were no gods in heaven, because they themselves resided below. From what the man said, Sunraku wondered if the man's companions even knew that there were no gods to be found above, since they had descended from the heavens. He then wondered what his gods there meant. He could also feel that the man was unloading many important things onto him all at once, which made him infer that perhaps this man was not just a plot device or whatever at all. Is he some really key figure? He asked. Then the man used a device and asked if his actions were being recorded. That was when Sunraku realized something he had missed earlier due to the angle of the hologram. He realized the man is in the same place as they were. The man went on to say that he had hoped to conduct the experiment further west of his current location, but why bother when the connection was already good enough? The deltas were functioning perfectly, he added. Sunraku was surprised again when he heard the man mention the word delta. It was then that he realized the receiver, transmitter, and positioner he had been searching for were the very same set of identical delta machines that the man was referring to. The man added that he was not going to be a doom-mongering pessimist like the others. Their disaster's root was here, and with his own hands he would put an end to it. But before he could finish, the hologram started glitching out and strange noises were heard. The man wondered what was happening, and Sunraku also asked himself what was wrong. There was suddenly jamming noise out of nowhere. Emil asked what was happening with the image they were seeing, since it was glitching out, and all they could hear now was what sounded like the man fighting against monsters. Sunraku then asked if the man was being attacked by something, annoyed that the most vital part was not being shown. At the same time, the man declared that he was not simply going to lie down and die, and ordered the excavator arm to activate. He shouted that he still needed to buy more time. Whoever may hear him, they needed to listen. Everything he was talking about was down below. If you looked up, all you would see was the same old universe. Nothing but a huge waste of time, according to him. His struggle worsened as he repeated that everything was down below. He added that some things would not work, but perhaps the Leviathan and the Behemoth would. Sunraku said he could not see what was happening at all. Just then, there was an explosion in the hologram video, and Sunraku wondered what had blown up. The man was screaming in the video, leaving Sunraku baffled. Both he and Emil saw it. The hologram feed became clear again, showing a tentacle-like thing wrapping around the man's body. Sunraku asked if it was a machine, but quickly thought that it was not, and then asked himself what it was. The scientist man said that at this rate, he did not care if Julius or Alice heard him. What they were doing was like spraying deodorizer onto an overflowing cesspool. It would do nothing to solve the core problem. Meanwhile, the man groaned in pain as the thing squeezed around his body. He explained that he had put his programming into the Delta devices, and although he hated to do it, he was leaving the programming in Julius and Alice's hands. The feed glitched again, and the man cursed the monster for trapping him. Why did it have to turn out this way, he asked. He then clenched his fist and said that even if it has to, he needed to get as close as he could, or the code. The launch code for Oniichan suit. Right after saying that, the monster pulled him into a large hole in the room. As he was dragged inside, a bright flash of light burst out of the hole. Sunraku and Emil were blinded by the brilliance of that light. The hologram video ended there, and Emil remarked that it was over. Sunraku turned toward the large hole in that room. He approached it, saying that even if he did not understand how the scientist had done it, in the end, he had blocked the hole. He then wondered if the devs want the players to see the video they had just watched right now. He had no idea what the answer was, but he felt as though he had just glimpsed the resolution of a plotline he had not been aware of yet. Then he went to where the transmitter, positioner, and receiver were. Emil said she still disliked the scientist, but admitted he had shown a major Vorpal soul at the end. Sunraku agreed with her, saying it was sad that they did not even know the scientist's name. Not even a name or anything. With that, he took the transmitter, positioner, and receiver. As he did so, he thanked the scientist for allowing him to finally obtain the 3 Delta machines boss Visash had asked him to retrieve in his quest. Still, though he did not want to admit it, he felt Pencilgon had been right about everything. Emil was surprised to hear him say that. Then Sunraku brought out an item called the Capture Eyeball, activating it. We learned that one day ago, Pencilgon had given that item to him. When he asked what it was for, Pencilgon said that while she could tell Sunraku to be careful and not take unnecessary risks, she was sure Sunraku would only trigger another huge in-game event again. The item, Pencilgon explained, would help record anything that happened. He should use it, and anything he saw would be recorded in the eyeball's memory. Sunraku had indeed used it, saying they should play back the hologram video. Emil was surprised they would watch it again, but Sunraku said that the 3-dimensional video was full of vital information, and even a relative SLF noob like him could see that. It would also be worth something, since Pencilgon had said they could first charge people to view the video, and then reveal its location and more information for a set price. On top of that, he wanted to go over the information again. Emol said she would stay away, since she did not want to watch it anymore. Before long, Sunraka finished rewatching and said he would turn off the capture eyeball for now. Still, he thought there might be other hologram videos around, so while they were there, they should try looking for something else. Then he spotted several things that looked like folders on a computer. He was surprised, realizing there was even more to see. 2 more videos could be checked. Emol became annoyed that he wanted to keep watching more videos, but his plan fell through when the files he had found turned out to be corrupted, which irritated him. Emol asked if both files were mangled. Sunraku said the game had revved him up for no reason, setting him up only to find damaged files. He then wondered why the SLF designers would bother with red herrings like that. Maybe those files were fixable somehow. He asked himself if he should look for a repair tool and bring it back there, but then thought, since it was video data, could it even be removed from the computer? If only he had a USB drive to save the files onto. Emol said what he was talking about made no sense. Sunraku then asked if he had a USB drive. Could he take the video files he found and play them elsewhere? Then he noticed a shape that looked familiar to him. He recalled why it was familiar and suddenly shook Emol. In his mind, he realized he knew what that Divinity-era recording device shaped like that was. It was the memory banks that contained Weathermon's skills, the sight and skill books. Sunraka brought out the sight and skill books, which surprised Emol, who asked him what that is. Sunraku explained that that is the sight and skill book, which he had obtained from the item drops of Weathermon. When he first got them, he had been excited at the idea of learning some of Weathermon's skills, but at the time, he had no idea how to use them at all. According to the description of the sight and skill book, it was a memory bank containing the skills of a master swordsman from the Age of Divinity, one whose strikes could slice through the wind, gouge the earth, and quell the dark clouds. The book could only be deciphered using Divine-era equipment. Sunraku admitted that he had forgotten all about it until now. Since Divine-era equipment was required to decipher and master it, he inserted the book into the slot that matched its shape. He added that if he could not use it there, then where else could he possibly use it? He hoped it would work, since the fit was perfect, so there was no way it was not linked. Suddenly, the sight and skill book began to float, startling both Sunraku and Emol. It released a brilliant flash of light, bright enough to almost blind them. Sunraku wondered what was happening, when suddenly the skill book beeped and shot a laser directly into his eyes. Then several virtual screens appeared before him, and he realized that this was the sight and style. He had earned skills from the sight and skill book, such as Hayakaze, Raime, and Aranami. Overwhelmed, Sunraku exclaimed in amazement that he had actually learned all of those skills. Now, he could truly tap into them for real, unlike the pale imitations he had previously attempted. Meanwhile, Emol was puzzled, since she could not see anything at all. Sunraku laughed, saying that Visash's quest was not just a fetch quest item after all, since he had been able to learn actual skills from the Sighten. He was thrilled with the unexpected bonuses it provided. Then he said they should test out all of those skills right now. However, at that moment, a pop-up message appeared before him, sent by Pencil Knight, also known as Pencilgon. Sunraku asked if isn't that from Pencilgon's mailbird, since that was her real-life email address. He questioned why was Pencilgon messaging him so late at night. The subject of the email was marked as an emergency, addressed to both Sunraku and Katso. In it, Pencilgon apologized, saying that Kyogoku had screwed up and that they would probably need to deal with the fallout soon. She asked them to meet her at Serpent's Apple in Levantar tomorrow since it was too late that night. Sunraku seemed annoyed that Kyogoku had already messed something up so quickly. Things was just getting good for him, and now it seemed like he could not pretend he had not seen the message. Because of that, he decided that he and Emol should call it a night and head back, especially since he still had school. Emol was confused when Sunraku mentioned school. Still, Sunraku thought to himself that Kyori Mate was up to no good. He had no idea what she had done, but he had a feeling it wasn't good news. There was going to be a huge mess to clean up. In the next scene, the story shifted to a place filled with dragons, flying in circles around a rocky mountain. That place was known as the Magnanimous Sanctuary. In that place, a group of players was preparing to launch an attack. Their buffs were complete, their healers were ready, and they were confident they could fight. They had reached the precipice and believed they were strong enough to challenge their opponent. Whether it was a unique monster or not, whoever was facing them better be ready for their group, according to one member. It turned out to be none other than Seagworm, the Sky Ruler. A party of 8 players was about to challenge the massive dragon, Seagworm. However, Seagworm apologized to them, saying he had no time to fight them, since he was expecting another guest shortly. The players were shocked by what they heard, and one of them exclaimed that just because Seagworm was a colossus, it did not mean he could belittle them. Another player was stunned that Seagworm was actually speaking. Seagworm then charged up with electricity-like powers as the players rushed him, boasting that they were strong enough to climb the mountain without even a scratch. Just a bit more, and their names will be celebrated across the whole world. As one of them was finishing his triumphant speech, Seagworm unleashed his fiery breath, and they were unable to counter it. A massive flash of light erupted on the stone mountain, and when it faded, only Seagworm remained, the players having vanished. Without difficulty, Seagworm had annihilated them. Then someone arrived and asked if he was done. Seagworm confirmed that he was, apologizing for making the person wait, and calling him his friend. It turned out to be none other than Visash, the leader of Rabbituza. Visash remarked that the sudden flash of light had been so bright, he thought he had dozed off until the next afternoon. He asked why Seagworm had to be so courteous, when he could have easily flicked the players away with a finger. Seagworm replied that anyone who readied their weapons and stood without fear of his authority was a hero. To respond with his full spirit was simply the polite thing to do. Visash admitted that was true and asked if that goes with his impersonators too. Seagworm explained that this was a difficult matter, since at the cellular level, their bodies were entirely different from his. They might see him as an enemy, but that hostility was quite misguided. Still, this was indeed a rare night, as Visash himself had come to see him. Visash confirmed it, but asked if Seagworm had not already noticed. It would not be much longer, he said, as the Dragon Blight was approaching. The Hyphae were chasing after Seagworm, and he was certain the second plan humans would exploit it. Though he already knew the answer, he still wanted to hear what Seagworm would do about it. Seagworm answered that his response had not changed. His will was unshaken, and his faith remained the same as that day. He was a mountain, a wall, a gate, and mankind would need to overcome him in order to proceed into the future. Visash then asked if that was so, because in that case, a certain house guest of his might end up fighting Seagworm before much longer. At that, Seagworm turned to look at him and laughed. He knew Visash was referring to the human who had once challenged the mighty Tomb Guard hero and overcome the Abyssal Octopus. That, of course, was Sunraku, the one who now points his sword right at his powerful wrath. Seagworm admitted that he loved it, remarking on what interesting times they lived in. Still, he said, if Sunraku insisted on trying to challenge him, it was his duty to descend upon him and trample him. He told Visash to let him show Sunraku, in that blighted land, just what it meant to face an almighty dragon. The World Quest Level 3 would be the battle to fell the Golden, and it was beginning now. A conflict involving the dragons still alive in the present, Noorwind and Seagworm. The Dragon King that had survived to this very moment, along with humanity across the world. The Dragon Blight conflict is finally here.